As a fellow Border Terrier owner, I knew my conversation with Henrietta, founder of Lily's Kitchen, would be a meeting of minds. A born entrepreneur, Henrietta started and sold a number of businesses before founding Lily's Kitchen, which now sells 50 million dog and cat meals a year. I travelled to her amazing offices in Hampstead with countless dogs walking around and even one snoring on the desk. It was a privilege to speak to Henrietta, who recounted her happy childhood before a tragic series of unexpected events that would turn her life upside down. But it was her terrible loss that became her fuel through her extraordinary life, a life filled with passion, purpose and entrepreneurial spirit. This is an episode about everything from disrupting an entire market and being a woman in business to money and doing good in the world. But ultimately, this conversation is about triumph over adversity and how love for animals and humans can conquer all.
Bow your head and let your eyelids close on down. Where we're going, you won't need to bring your frown.
I'm Holly Tucker and welcome to Conversations of Inspiration. Back in 2006, I founded Not on the High Street from my kitchen table, and since then I've gone on to launch Holly & Co. I'm the UK ambassador of creative small businesses, and I believe that having a business doing what you love is the key to a happy, fulfilled life. My dream is to help everybody start theirs. I'm here to offer advice, inspiration, wisdom and encouragement. And in my view, the best way to do this is by sharing stories. So I've reached out to my favourite small businesses, entrepreneurs and those who simply inspire me and asked them to share theirs. Here are my conversations of inspiration. Hi Henrietta, I finally meet you and I have just really dreamt about this moment because I knew that A, I would adore you, but also just now stalking you for this podcast, I realise you're going to blush firstly that you're frigging amazing. And we both have borders. Your Border Terrier Lily was the inspiration behind the business. And of course, Mr. Mudley, my border, is a huge fan of your food. But you have the most wonderful career in business spanning over 30 years. And I'm sure you have all the battle scars. So I just can't wait to chat to you today. And thank you for being my guest on this podcast.
Oh, thank you, Holly. You're so enthusiastic. I love it. I'm all tingling with your enthusiasm. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. She thinks all these things about me. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. So, first of all, could you tell us a bit about your childhood growing up? What were you like as a child and what were your passions?
Gosh, well, I was a very precocious child, I think. I was adored by my mother and father, which I know most children are adored by their parents. But I just remember just having these lovely dresses and being really loved and taken care of, and my father holding my hand down the street and me thinking, wow, my dad's amazing, I'm amazing. And just having these real moments of feeling like I was, really loved and taken care of. But I did have quite a checkered childhood. So I was born in Beirut and I have a younger brother. And we were evacuated during the war. We moved to the UK because my mother was British and my father was Lebanese. And soon after we moved over, unfortunately, my mother was in a car crash, and I was 11, and she died instantly. And the following year, my father died of brain cancer. So it was a childhood in really two stages. One that was all happy and fabulous and sort of apple my parents' eye, and the other half really marred by a lot of very tragic events in a short period of time.
Gosh, that is actually just quite unbelievable that you went through so much at such a young age. You were 12 when your father passed away.
Yes.
How did that shape your life, losing these two people who adored you so close together and at such a young age?
Well, I always say I wouldn't be the person I am now if that hadn't happened, because, it was such a double shock. And plus, being a refugee, leaving the country I was born in behind, and being in a new country, I had a choice, really. It was a sink or swim situation. I think, for the first sort of 18 months after my dad died, I was really quite a lost person. And I just remember feeling, this sort of weird mixture of obviously devastated, but also angry and kind of ashamed in some way. I sort of, at school, everybody would stop me, as I was going about my day. Are you okay? You can always talk to me if you want to. And there was no bereavement counselling or anything like that in those days. And actually people asking you, you can always talk to me, wasn't helpful, because I could just never kind of get on with my time and my day at school, and I just felt like I was an odd person who, everybody prayed for me in assembly, for example, which is lovely. But, I just wanted to kind of hide away and not stand out.
And was it your grandparents that looked after you, or how did you move forward?
So we were adopted by my mother's brother, my uncle, and his wife, and they had 2 children too. So we ended up being a family of 4 children. But there's the Oscar Wilde thing where losing one parent is tragic, losing 2 is careless, and that's not me making light of it, but it was such an awful thing to happen that I really, I at some point in my teenage years, I just had to stop being the victim about it and go, look, I have to be a survivor. I am a survivor. Anything's possible. Nothing terrible like this is ever going to happen to me again. And that really gave me blank canvas in life, because I just, I could just go for it. I applied to Cambridge thinking, of course, they're never going to take me in, but I had nothing to lose. And I'm a businesswoman because of being able to sort of go, right, let's have a go, let's see what happens, and not being worried about the consequences.
Because you almost dealt with what is the worst that could ever happen.
Exactly.
It happened to you. You were obviously highly intelligent, driven, and had a passion for wanting to help people. You went to Talbot Heath all-girls school and then went on to study at Cambridge University. What was that time like studying? And did you think that did you have that entrepreneurial spirit then? So this sort of, what is the worst that can happen? That was brewing in you, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean, I love challenging the status quo as well. That's very much part of my DNA. And so I organised various stalls and things at school and sold bits and pieces, so homemade cakes and stuff like that. But when I went to college, I actually set up a few businesses to keep me going. I did everything from print T-shirts to make teddy bears. I used to go to Laura Ashley and buy literally hundreds of meters of upholstery fabric and make cravats and waistcoats and sell them to the local shops. The kind of thing that would just give me some money to to keep me going in my student days.
So it was literally brewing. So you had a teddy bear company. You also went into publishing, is that right?
Yes. So when I graduated, I went into publishing, and I have an aunt who has Down syndrome, and she's just amazing. She's 67 now. But, at the time, she was working in a makeup company, and she then stopped working. And it just really made me realise that actually people with disabilities just don't have the opportunities that were possible. And it really spurred me on to set up a magazine for disabled students and graduates, which I did. That was the first magazine that I launched. And it was a lovely, glossy, colourful magazine. And, the disabilities officers at universities were saying, this is amazing. Usually it's a photocopied piece of paper with some really sort of, crappy jobs on it. But these are graduate jobs. I'm like, well, yes, of course, if you have a disability, you can get yourself through university, then, you can do any job.
Anything. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So,
so I set up other magazines, all for students and school leavers and graduates.
I mean, I can't even, I'm so excited about this interview. You are, you're the embodiment of just that entrepreneurial spirit, that thing that just some people just have. They just didn't probably think much of it, that you were making all these businesses or what you were doing. But that, when you now look back, it's a bit special. So in the early 2000s, you had a light bulb moment, and you had sold your recruitment publishing company and had just started a 3-year course in garden design, growing your own vegetables, aiming to be self-sufficient, then suddenly you got this inspiration for Lily's Kitchen. Can you tell us about that moment, that story?
Yes, I'd sold my publishing company. I had...
How old were you when you sold your publishing company?
That's a good question. I think I must have been about 29.
Yeah, okay.
29,
right.
30, something like that. I had actually also launched a .com in that period too. So I raised $5 million to launch queercompany.com, and when all the .coms are being launched around that 1999, 2000.
That.
Yes, that fantastic moment. I didn't sell that. Unfortunately, that company went bust, as you know, it was devastating at the time, but 99.9% of .coms, that's what happened.
And what
to
did
them.
that .com do?
It was a gay community portal. You know, nobody would blink an eyelid now, but at the time we had huge posters around the UK and in London, and Metro newspaper just launched, and we took out the outside cover to put a picture of, you know, two women in bed together, saying thank God for women, and others that said, you know, sorry mum, no white wedding. And, you know, it was brilliant. We had just so many complaints sent to the Advertising Standards Authority, but you know, they weren't upheld, luckily. You know, people were writing, well, it's disgusting, we have to walk a different way home from school so that my children don't have to look at this poster.
Isn't it amazing how things have moved on?
It is amazing, both in disability actually and in gay rights.
It's such a good time to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So go on. So you sold that business, and the Lily's Kitchen story, how did that begin? So the Lily's
Kitchen story. So, you know, so I have one daughter, and I was married previously, and there wasn't the likelihood of me having another child, and I thought, it just doesn't feel right just having one child. I need a dog. So my brother is a vet, and I said to him, look, you know, I don't really know anything about dogs. What kind of dog do you think I should get? And so we were chatting, and he said, you know, Border Terriers are best, as you know.
They are indeed.
So we picked out Lily, and she came home with us, and, you know, we were just delighted. You know, family life was completely transformed, and my daughter really had a sibling in Lily. After about a year or so, she started to get really quite ill, and just lots of sore patches, you know, her fur was falling out. She was forever itching her ears, licking her paws. It just didn't seem right. And I said to my brother, look, I think there's something wrong with her. Can you take a look? And he would give me some cream, which I'd put on. And then the minute I stopped putting the cream on, everything would just come back again. Anyway, and then she just started becoming really fussy about her food. And so I tried all kinds of foods until, you know, one day she would just refuse to eat. And I put the food out in her bowl, and she just would back away from the bowl, which you can imagine for a dog. This is very unusual for a dog to do that. And I just thought, God, what is going on? So a couple of days like that went past, and then I just thought, I'm going to try and cook for her and see what happens. So I cooked for her, and she ate it all up, and I was just like, thank God she's actually eaten, because you can't force a dog to eat. You know, I cooked for her for another, you know, couple of weeks, you know, which was a pain, frankly, because I was busy working, my daughter, all my other responsibilities. But I saw that she had got better. So after 2 weeks, her fur literally started growing, and all the redness that was all in her ears and her body was clearing up. And so I told my brother, and I said, look, could it be the food? It's like, no, you're not that much of a good cook. And I said, no, but what I've been feeding her previously, do you think there's something wrong with it? And he said, no, it's just all the same stuff. And so I started to investigate what actually went into pet food. And I was really so surprised and so horrified by what went in. And I felt stupid that I'd been completely duped, because, you know, you're buying a tin of dog food, you think that it's got chicken and carrots and all this stuff on the front. And then discovered that, you know, basically all pet food is made from bone meal and oil. You know, you're lucky if you get a bit of rice or a bit of dried peas, but that was it. You know, I was really angry about it, because I thought, God, and I felt guilty, you know.
Yeah,
I'd been sort of, you know, making my own dog ill. So I just thought, look, I can't cook myself, for Lily myself forever. What I would love is to be able to have a pet food that I could just pull out of the cupboard and, you know, trust and know that it was made of really good things. And I don't know if you remember, but growing up, we had cats, but did you ever have, you know, we used to have a separate cupboard for the cat food and a separate spoon, and, you know, it had to all be separate because it was so disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just thought, imagine if you could have pet food that was really lovely, that smelt great, that was delicious, that actually was good for your pet. How fantastic would that be? So, and that's, you know, That was it. I knew nothing about it. I had no idea that I was taking on this huge industry, massively complicated to do it. And it's one of my mantras that, I love setting up a business around a subject I really don't know anything about, because it means that I have complete sort of 2020 vision. I can just see, you just have a blank canvas and I can ask the questions and really come from what could be possible rather than, okay, so this is what the past looked like. Let's do a little tweak. Because frankly, what I was doing was outrageous. The tin was £2.20 because it was full of fresh meat and fresh vegetables and 15 organic herbs, etc. And that was it. So November 2008, we launched.
It is just unbelievable. You had because you had also, didn't you, this passion for fresh produce, homegrown vegetables. And I love that story. It just goes to show really how you can turn a passion. Granted, you know nothing about the dog food industry or pet industry, but it was that passion and it became a unique business because of that. The passion, 2020 vision, blank canvas, can ask all the stupid questions. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But that's what's going to make it unique. And so many people often come up to me and they say that they'd love to run their own business, but they just simply don't know what they should do. They'll sit on the tube and ask me this, and I'm like, I have to get off at the next stop. I can't work this out right now. But I always say it's about finding what your passions are and then turning that into a business. And if you don't know your passions, you have to discover them. I mean, just in life, because it makes you happy, but it basically makes that passion and that interest into your everyday life because you turn it into a business. So I guess the secret is being curious about everything and being enthusiastic. Would you agree?
Yes. I mean, just, challenging the status quo sounds quite lofty, but I think curiosity is exactly the right word, because if you see something that's affecting you that you feel you want to make a difference to, or you're passionate about making a difference to, that is all you need. You do not need experience. And, in fact, I'm always saying, I hate experts, because experts will give you all the reasons why you should not do something. And expertise is a very way too highly valued commodity. Not having expertise, I think, is really helpful when you're starting out, because you can do anything. Anything then is possible, because you're really coming from what could the future look like, and you bring it into the now rather than what's everybody done before, and you just create. And it's a very creative way of approaching any business. What
a good piece of advice. And also, just to add to that, you're the customer, aren't you? So yes. You're actually living in the problem that you're seeing.
Yes, exactly.
You visualize the future, and as you say, you draw it back to today. So you officially founded your business in 2008 at the peak of the recession. Yes. And I read that you started with £150,000 of your own savings, which you'd worked 20 years to achieve that pot of money.
Wow, that's true. I never thought of it like that. But yes, that is true.
So I want to talk more openly, actually, on this podcast about money, and I hope it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
As often finance can be the biggest barrier for people starting businesses, and it can hold people back, especially women. Yep. So what were your first steps when starting Lily's Kitchen? How did you know that you were going to need that sort of amount of money, let's say? You knew you were disrupting an entire industry that might be worth a lot of money. So it wasn't going to be £1,000. Yep. But how did you start out, and that risk of taking your savings, your life savings, and risking it on this? Tell me about that relationship between you and money.
Okay, I love talking about this aspect, because I do find that women especially are really dreadful about talking about money. So we should definitely spend time talking about that. But just to address the earlier question, I was blindly passionate. I was so determined to make a difference, and I just felt there must be other people like me. And actually, when I did a straw poll, even on my street, I discovered that everybody on the street cooked for their dogs because they didn't trust what was in the supermarkets. And I just thought, oh my God, it's not only me. I spent 2 years before launching the products for sale, so to speak, and I spoke to all kinds of people who I respected in the pet world. So, conventional vets, homeopaths, herbalists, kinesiologists, just to get everybody's opinion on what the perfect pet food would look like for cats and for dogs. And just spent loads and loads of time researching. What I got more and more and more enthusiastic about the products that I was going to launch. And when we did launch them, again, it was the worst time possible, as you said, November 2008, and I gave them to local vets and local shops. And I said, look, just give them to your customers and we'll hear what the feedback is. And it was terrifying. I just did put my head in my hands at the time and think, how could I have just picked literally the worst time to launch an expensive pet food brand? But I did really believe that people could see that the food would make a difference very quickly. And also they would equate to the fact that actually a tin of dog food is cheaper than a cappuccino. And maybe, it's worth giving up your daily coffee so that your dog could have a really good meal that was actually really healthy. I just, there was a lot of fingers crossed, I have to say. But, I'm a big believer if you do create a really great product that's really founded on good values, then you will come through. And literally within a couple of days, they called up and said, can we buy some? They've come in to buy some more. I think the amount of people who said to me, because I visited about 30 factories and kitchens and all sorts of places across Europe, and pretty much all of them said to me, look, we can't make your recipe. We just can't. We've never handled fresh meat. This was the first time fresh meat had been used in pet food, can you believe? And they
Shocking.
said, because otherwise it's all dry otherwise, apart from the oil. And they said, well, what we can do is you can put that lovely label of yours on and we can make you food just like all the other horrible food that we make. And you can put your pretty label on. And, if I was a sort of cynical business person thinking, right, I want to get rich quick,
That's exactly what you would have done.
That is what I would have done. But, I just... It's like the fact that we have a customer service team, which we've had from day one, so that, for the first 2 years, I was always on the phones as well, picking up calls, just to get the feedback from customers and just to hear people say, wow, thank you so much for bringing out a food that my cat can eat, my dog can eat, and the improvement in health. I think that's what's so exciting.
Amazing. So that money then, so you put that money aside and you said, right, that's what I'm going to do. With,
Yes.
I'm going to put my life savings into it. How did you then go about handling that? And did you risk it all very, very quickly?
No, I risked it over a period of about 18 months. So I knew I would need that kind of pot of money because, as you said, it's 96% dominated by the big boys. And so I knew I needed enough money to see me through. But I was happy to take the risk. I felt so strongly. I adore Lily. I know how people love their pets, and that actually, if they could see the difference between what a good meal looked like compared to what they'd usually been feeding, they would, they would back the business and buy the product.
So you've just got to go for it, haven't you? In terms of, if you believe it to your bones that this is the right idea, you have just got to go forward, don't you? And so it's actually quite amazing because you were laughed at, weren't you? Ridiculed for wanting to create a dog food with vegetables, fruit in it. And often you didn't even dare mention that it also contained rosehip and milk thistle.
Yes, exactly.
And this is over 10 years ago. So I can only imagine some of, the men in the factories. I can only imagine it was all men and not women.
It was.
And you didn't have social media at the time, did you? And so you've got this new product found on that passion. You already sort of know it's the long game, isn't it, that you were playing there?
Absolutely.
Because your whole road was almost doing it. So tell me about those first stockists and building your name out there, because £150,000 is a lot of money. It is also nothing in compared to big brand names. So you had to use that money wisely. Where was that was it the first stockist that you got that started to blow it up, or was it clever marketing?
Well, no, it was the first stockists, probably about 6 shops initially, and then we built up quite quickly. So we had about 200 shops by the end of, the first 6 months. And it was just Anita, who still works for us, which is great.
Oh, that's so great.
Her and I just working at my kitchen table, sharing the phone, because we only had one phone, incoming and outgoing calls, and knocking on people's doors. We did all the deliveries. So from day one, I had a website that people could order from directly. So if a shop wasn't going to take it on, then at least we could say to people, you can buy online from us. And so we did all the deliveries ourselves. And we had one day, very early on, we had somebody in Hampstead who ordered 600 tins of our chicken and turkey casserole.
600?
A famous person who I can't mention.
Okay.
I had a tiny car, a 2-person electric car. So you can imagine, we did about 20 trips to this house, piled all the tins outside the front door, and then rang the doorbell and said, oh, the delivery drivers just had to leave, but we'll bring this in for you. Just pretend that we had some big company.
Big company, you know, and just the founder just happened just to be here, just to welcome you to Lily's Kitchen. How fantastic.
But yes, it was, it is a lot of money. And I think the breakthrough moment came for us because the food was so good. I know it's boring to keep saying that, but people would open it and smell it and go, oh my God, this doesn't even smell like dog food. That was the thing. So we actually got a lot of PR. So we were written about by, well-known journalists in prominent columns that really got the word going. So luckily for me, that was just invaluable.
Because you were doing something different. That's the other thing to say to people is that if you do something unique, I remember not in High Street, we got the press. Getting articles in the Times and Telegraph, etc., as a young business starts to put you really on the map.
Regarding the press, can I just say, some were favourable, but we had plenty of Daily Mail articles going, how ridiculous, blueberries and dog food, whatever next. But, and I'd open the paper and go, oh, my God, this is just awful. They're just slating us. But the phone would be ringing off the hook and we'd have hundreds of orders through our website that day.
So it's like, thank you, Daily Mail.
Yes. And, I'd be in tears, but we'd be flooded with orders because people would read and think, actually, yes, I want that for my dog. I want good food for my dog. And so, so that was very helpful.
As you're listening to this episode, I'm so glad you found your way to Conversations of Inspiration, and I hope you've taken some wisdom from it. Keep listening, it gets even better. Every week we explore the highest highs and the lowest of lows of some of the nation's favourite founders, creatives and entrepreneurs as they share their stories with me. Having recorded over 130 episodes, there are so many incredible guests to choose from, every one of them sharing their experiences, advice, and my most anticipated part of each episode, a letter to their younger self. If you're not sure where to start, head to holly.co, where you can browse all our back catalogue by collection. There are buckets of podcasts you can choose from, such as Business as a Force for Good, to female founders, or perhaps hearing stories from those with dyslexia. Needless to say, this unique library has changed my life completely, and I'm positive it will have the same effect on you. Now, let's get back to our conversation of inspiration. Tell me, you had Waitrose knock on your door, is that right?
Actually, we did have Waitrose after about, I think, the first year. And I didn't say yes to them at that point. I said no. And I think, again, it was an interesting decision because I knew that if I went into a supermarket too quickly, it would be, I was worried about losing control of the brand. So actually, we didn't start going into grocery. Ocado was the first one after about 4 years. So we really built up the business brick by brick. Literally, Nita and I on the phone, and then I could afford to hire more people. And we visited every stockist who wanted to take us on. And, by 4 years, we probably had about 1,600 stockists. But then we got the Ocado call out of the blue. Oh, I heard you on, I think I did something on Sky. We'd love to see you. Went in, really liked them. They were very entrepreneurial at the time, and they are now as we were. And that was actually a big breakthrough for us because I had no experience dealing with grocers, no experience of this industry at all. And so, I'm a keen person to make mistakes, but I knew I'd be making too many.
Make mistakes, but not tons of them.
Not every single mistake in the book. No, Henrietta. So that's, I wanted to learn the ropes of the Ocado, which we did. And then we went into Waitrose, and now we're pretty much in all supermarkets.
In all supermarkets. Also, it's scaling up, isn't it? Fulfilling supermarket orders can be so difficult. I spoke to the wonderful Pippa Murray, founder of Pippa Nut, on this podcast, and she said that this is often a barrier for small businesses, as you need to invest a huge amount in the stock to fulfill the order. So, you say on the phone, oh, yes, of course I can do that. And then panic how you're going to do it. Yes. And it's often a huge amount of money. So it really is a consideration point, isn't it? Not going too fast, too quickly.
And you can also, you have to spend a lot of money when you're in a grocer. So, one of the things that people don't realise is that every promotion that's, every 50% third off, buy one, get one free, that's all funded by you. It's not funded by the supermarket. So not only are you having to stock them, but, there's always an intro offer. And then suddenly you're getting, okay, here's £50,000 order that they've given you, but here's, £100,000 of,
promotion you've
and
got
promotion
to do,
and listing fees and other things that can go with it. It doesn't happen all the time, but quite often it does.
It does. Like I say, I remember seeing your dog food, and I think it's when I just got Mr. Mudley, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I thought, gosh, this is so clever. Firstly, your packaging design was beautiful and it felt wonderfully organic, but you made the dog as much part of the family as the child. You were catering to me, the customer. And I remember seeing your Sunday lunch option and then your Christmas dinner can of dog food. And I definitely thinking, right, Mr. Mudley needs to have Christmas lunch. Well, of course he does, but why have I not been doing this? And I remember being laughed at and not in the high street, when we had dog stockings, et cetera, and wanting to have in our catalogue, an entire pet section. And of course, 10 years later, we have a huge pet demand and pet gifting, et cetera, as part of Not in the High Street. But I think as a woman, you can tap into this emotion, this empathy of your customer, and you understand that, of course, your dog needs to be spoilt at Christmas as much as the other family members. Can you just tell me about these product innovation moments? Because it's very, very clever, and also how that helped with marketing. Because in a way, your product can be as much as 4 pages in a magazine, if you get it right.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I mean, I think it goes back to my childhood. I needed to create family. I'd lost my family, and Lily was so much part of our family. I know she's a dog, but she was my family as much as my daughter or anybody else. And so I was always coming from that point. And we were the first to do advent calendars for dogs. And now, of course, they're everywhere, which is great. Lots of choice. We did Bedtime Biscuits. That was, we launched with that product. And because Lily goes to bed, it jumps into her basket, and I want to be able to give her a healthy treat. And so, it's made with chamomile and passion flowers and yogurt. And now it's so much part of people's daily ritual, or nightly ritual, should I say. And it's equating those sort of moments that you have with your pet and just being able to sort of think about what product really goes with that. And I'm just noticing actually behind you, we've got the recovery recipe, and we have a lovely card next to it which says feeling poorly. So we write a card to our customer if they call in and say that their dog's not very well and could they have some recovery recipes until their dog gets better. There's also the hard-edged business side of it, which is that dog food and cat food was so boring in November 2008. You would get into a supermarket and all you would see is rows and rows of pictures of dogs' faces with their tongue hanging out. Every brand was like that.
Yeah.
And it was all just about functionality, and, feeding your dog or cat the same thing day in, day out. There was no romance or fun involved. And given how much fun pets give us. Yeah, and they are. We've got snack bars, we've got all kinds of things because, they are part of our day-to-day life, the ups, the downs, the breakfast, the lunches, all of it.
So clever. I know anyone listening, their brains are whirring, because it's, you went in, you saw all the cans, rows and rows of the same thing, and you just wanted to do something different. So, people need to get out there, don't they? If they're looking for inspiration, see what is boring. How could pet food be boring when these animals are all in your life and only create fun? So just moving on, you now have a huge following of fans and customers, including lots of celebrities, Ed Sheeran, Fern Cotton, Prince Charles, pretty exciting. And you received a royal warrant from him too. I didn't actually realise you can still get a royal warrant.
I know, isn't it wonderful? I mean, we were just so excited. So
I bet.
It's a long process though. I mean, you have to be a supplier for 5 years to the Royal House household. Then it's an 18-month process to fill in all the forms and and get approval. So it's almost like a 7-year process, which is a long time.
Yes.
But it was so validating for the team here because we are so passionate about what we do and doing it the right way as well, not just producing a commodity. And the thing with the Royal Warrant from the Prince of Wales is that actually it's a very onerous and rigorous process. There are hundreds of forms to fill in because they really vet your business from the inside out, everything that you do, not just the product. And so to get the Royal Warrant
really is the seal of approval.
It's really the bee's knees.
It is a bee's knees. How cool. And you now sell over 50 million dog and cat meals every year. You are stocked in 22 countries and you have sales of over £70 million a year. This is pretty cool for a lady who was putting her vegetables into a pot, mixing them around, and Lily was getting better. So it disrupted an industry. So huge congratulations. But I think what's very interesting and admirable about your business is how you're also using it as a force for good. You're now certified as a B Corp, so you're using your business as a force for good. And I know how hard it is, especially for a business your size, stocked in 22 countries, to actually get that. We've been interviewing a few B Corp businesses on this podcast. Ed Perry, founder of Cook, as I said, Pippa Murray. And we're actually on this very start ourselves at Holly & Co. to becoming a B Corp. We just started this month. And it is quite complicated to navigate. And we're thinking we might actually work with the guys and create a B Corp guide for small businesses because I think
can definitely help you with that.
Okay, well, Thank you very much. Can you just tell me why you decided to become a B Corp?
Yes, I can. Oh gosh, well, it's a funny story. I'm passionate about business and I am passionate about making a difference. And I just felt the two were just not meeting in the middle. I was working sort of night and day, and then it would be a kind of like, oh my God, we haven't done anything charitable. Let's contact our local charities and do something. And it was great. We've given, actually now I think we've given over 1.5 million meals away, which is a lot. And I just really wanted something that was very much, part and parcel of our day-to-day air that we breathe. It was part of the fabric of the business. And actually, it was Richard Branson who told me about B Corp because I researched it, and it was just in the US at the time. And they said, look, we're thinking about being able to bring it over to the UK. And I said, well, great. When you do, please let me know. I'm super interested. And we were one of the founding members of B Corp in the UK.
Fantastic.
Because giving to charity and being charitable and standing for something and wanting to make a difference, you do need a structure around it. So it doesn't just become something that you do at Christmas. It's in everything that we do, just, from the sort of housekeeping stuff like the kind of light bulbs we use. You'll notice nobody has a bin because we have recycling places in the kitchen, so people have to stand up and put their stuff in, so it all gets recycled.
That's a good tip.
Lots of, tons of things like that to, not coming back with empty lorries once the delivery's been done. So the people we work with, we've encouraged them to become B Corps and to also look at their environmental footprint. But also the raising money, the making a difference, and it being, as I said, part of our daily lives. I think that's something that has really made a difference to also the people who we recruit, the team who are here, the volunteering that we do. It's
all
exciting.
Good, isn't it? The whole thing is good. Tell me what the biggest difference you think you had to make in order to become a B Corp. What was that sort of? Was it packaging or or were you already on that journey?
We were already on that journey. So we don't produce, I think it's something like 80% of our packaging is either compostable, which is amazing, or recyclable. And that was the case from day one. I was paranoid about creating more kind of mess and rubbish and all the rest of it in the world. And I wanted the business to be very environmentally friendly from the start. The biggest difference, I think, is our team. They love being part of a business that is the B Corp business. And so, there's always something going on. We're raising money pretty much every month for something or other. I think the hardest thing was, it could have been the bins, actually, because everyone complains about having to get up and walk to the kitchen. It was persuading the board, I think, that, this was not just a sort of, sandal
Nice thing to
wearing.
do.
Yes, exactly. And
Yes.
this wasn't going to hold us back, that this was actually a very positive step forward. It was at the time that we were raising some finance, actually. So I remember saying to the PE firm that we ended up using, I just want you to know that this is a non-negotiable. And they're like, yes, that's fine. That's okay. We were into that.
I love how you're using your business in every way to do good, from your partnerships with charities to your brand values, how you're treating your team, your recyclable packaging, to your products that give back. I remember seeing your limited edition Pride food, full of love and pride, with the beautiful rainbow illustration on the front, and thinking, wow, this is a business, I mean, I just love even more, where 75p from the sale of every tin tasty beef dinner for dogs went to international charities Stonewall. You could have just been a business selling organic dog food, and yet now you're standing for so much more. You have B Corp within your organisation. You've built this team for now over 85 people, is that right?
We are slightly less now. It's more like 65.
65
Yep.
people. Well, do you ever look back and think, sliding doors moments where, you know, there must have been times where the sales weren't coming in or things were rough or, you know, tough, and yet you've stuck true to something. And now you're here reflecting and looking back. And of course, you know, we're not talking about whatever's on your to-do list, which is, you know, shit sitting the fan somewhere. But I'm just talking generally, you know, if you look back, you know, you've really created something that is a force of good.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's very kind of you to say so. You know, I think as a woman, firstly, and as a business owner and founder, you know, sometimes I'm guilty of only seeing the things that need fixing rather than all the great things that we've done. So, you know, I always need to wrap myself on the knuckles for that. I think, you know, when you're creating a product or setting up a business, I'm always saying to my team, you know, what's the story you are trying to tell here? You know, why are we doing this? Why are we bringing out this product? And it's a very important question, because otherwise, you could just be bringing out products left, right, and centre, and there's no opinion behind it. It's not making a difference. And so the Pride tin, for example, the thing that I was so excited about was yes, we were raising money for Stonewall, but I was thrilled that Pets at Home, for example, put it on their counter. So on every till point, there was a Pride tin, which would have been unthinkable even 5 years ago, because, you know, it's a gay product, I guess. And, you know, for them to go, yes, actually, we're happy to do that. It's very hard for people to really remember what the days were like. I mean, Pride in July this year, a couple of months ago, every single shop had rainbows in the window, and, you know, it's the sort of right-on thing now, which is great. But when we did it a couple of years ago, even, it was still a big deal to have it, you know, as a product displayed on the front. And when we did, we actually did have some hate mail at the time as well. You know, why are you shoving this down my face? I'm not interested, blah, blah, blah. I will no longer be supplying you. Quite, you know, we had a few trolling moments.
From your consumers. Gosh,
Yeah.
It's so important though, isn't it? And I'd love to just touch on that, because I think that, you know, product has the ability to cut through, doesn't it? It also gives a device for Pets at Home to actually talk about their values, their change. If they didn't have that, for instance, you know, what were they going to do? How were they going to say that Pets at Home wants to support this, that this is absolutely fine by them, they want to celebrate it? So it's an interesting thing, isn't it, when looking at designing a product, that actually it's not just your product. Think about how your product could be used elsewhere. We're just right now designing up a shop independent sticker where we're going to get it out there into shops so that they have their own merchandising, you know, for instance, you know, so it's not just an average sticker. No, this is a proud to be independent. Now that we know will spread, you know, and it's actually then becomes a bit of a marketing tool, doesn't it? And so I think that that's something that we don't talk about enough, which is products are amazing marketing tools.
They really are. And I mean, and have the ability to make a difference. So with the Pride tin, we also ran a competition within Pets at Home, saying that we also took a huge Pride float at the Pride Parade, and that we would pay for 10 people within Pets at Home to come to London and come and be on our Pride float. And so there were posters in every store saying, you know, would you like to win tickets to go on the Lily's Kitchen Pride float? So again, that was really sort of getting the message out. And people came from all over the the country, and they were so excited to be on the float with us. And it was a very nice team bonding day with them and one of our stockists, which was great. So it's nice when everything marries up and you're really creating a good foundation for a product that's, again, not just about producing something and seeing how many you can sell.
So tell me, one of my personal missions is to help empower more female entrepreneurs. There's still a huge disparity in the numbers of women starting a business against the rate of men starting businesses, especially when you compare it to America and Australia. You've been in business now 30 years, so you must have seen a massive shift. Did you experience much sexism back then when you founded Lily's Kitchen?
Oh, gosh. One of the areas that I feel has not changed whatsoever, and I know this may be deeply cynical, is the role of women in business. I mean, I have to say I get patronised relentlessly. Pretty much every conference I go to, I could be the only woman there, apart from the woman who's taking coats. It is incredibly common. I know sometimes that I get sent a car to pick me up, and I think, oh, this is wonderful. I've got a car to pick me up, but I don't need to worry about jumping on the tube. But it's to make sure that I arrive at the conference or the talk or whatever, because, whoops, I'm the only woman who's there. And I just find that unbelievable. I went to a girls' school. I went to women's college at Cambridge. I've been in business for 30 years, and I cannot believe the progress. It's just been so slow, and I'm very worried. I have a daughter who's 23, and I just think, God, we need to change things much faster in this area.
So do you think, let's say, areas such as we just spoke about B Corp, right, and look at the rate that we've stopped plastic straws and plastic bags quick, right?
Yes.
And so, I was speaking to Emma Bridgewater last week on this podcast. She was talking about all the amazing qualities that women do have as being an entrepreneur. Sahar Hashimi from Coffee Republic said the same thing. Emma was saying how, women tend to ask for directions. It means that actually women communicate. Women say, well, if you don't know what to do, you can't help me. Might you know someone that could help me?
Yes.
So we've got all these incredible qualities. And Sahar was saying she even thinks it's the era of the female entrepreneur, that's what it is. But tell me, what really would you say are some of the things that you think would change things?
Militancy. Women were very nice, and we're glad to be vulnerable and happy for guys to sort of, lead the meeting and, all the rest of it. But I think I'm getting to the point where I just think we need to become much more militant. I mean, I think I'm saying it slightly tongue-in-cheek, but I'm quite serious about it. Recently, I was at an event and chatting to a guy, and he said to me, oh, yes, Lily's Kitchen. And he said, so and you make it in your kitchen? This was 6 months ago. And I said to him, make it in my kitchen? No, I sell 50 million tins a year. My kitchen's not that big. But to think that he just assumed that because I was a woman running a food business, I would be making it in the kitchen. I've been referred to as a mumpreneur, which I know can be a trendy word for some people, but I absolutely hate it. It's so patronizing. I can't imagine any man being described as a dadpreneur.
No, they would not.
No, and I just, the level of just the assumptions, I think, is what needs to be pushed aside. And I think part of it is back to that first point you made around money. I think women, we're ashamed when we make money, and women who win big prizes tend to give the money away because, they can't deal with having that much money. But I think related to this is a money conversation that women are worried to be seen to be successful, and I know I am.
And why do you think that is? I was talking just recently about this, and I was just saying, women saw maybe their fathers handling the money. Our bank managers were men. The adverts on TV were male. The branding of banks is male, I would say. I feel like it's all very subconscious. And when I was only at the Telegraph Women Means Business Live yesterday, and talking about the imposter syndrome, this now great word to be talking about it. But actually, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to crack on. And what fuels this imposter syndrome? And I think it's about money. I think it's about legals, and I think it's about tech. And because P&L, well, my husband does that. Coding, someone down the road, Johnny's brother does that. We tend to not just say, well, I just know absolutely F all about this. Great. I'm going to learn it. And then I'll never have to feel ashamed again. Why is it that we just don't do that?
Well, I mean, one of the things I think is interesting, I've been helping my school with fundraising and various other things. And, one of the things that I said to them was, it's sort of quite dilapidated. And I said, it's because we're a girls' school. You would not go around a boys' school or a mixed college. And the reason is, it's the same with my college at Cambridge. The reason is that women don't leave money in wills to their alma mater. Men tend to leave it for theirs. There's a whole seam around money and women and, ownership of your own wealth and what you spend your money on. I think that needs tackling. I think it really is around that. We can all see plenty of wealthy men who sort of, happy to flaunt it, but where are the women? And we need women, frankly, who have done really well and who are happy to stand up and say so, but there are very few, if any, really.
And tell me, for those who are listening, who are at the early stages of their business, maybe young business owners in the first year or 5 years, they're listening to this and they're saying, you know what, that's me. I'm not confident around the P&L. I do not know what EBITDA is. I really still don't actually understand tax. I'm saying it out loud because, we were all there and, not everyone understands it still. Tell me just about how you tackled that yourself and what advice you would give to people listening, because I think we now we could be cracking a bit of the imposter syndrome, you and me, on this podcast. Should we try that?
Well, I think what women should ask, and I also think we need to be careful not to assume that women don't know what that means, because again, it's kind of portraying women as kind of not really knowing what's going on. I think men would also be in that situation. I just think we are, backwards and coming forwards. We will, let other people go ahead and we let guys go ahead, and we won't stand up and say, actually, I have done really well. Look at my successes. And, I know I'm guilty of that too. You just know that in meetings, it is generally the guys who will, swagger and talk about all their sort of wonderful things, and women will tend to hang back and just share little pieces of information. And I just think culturally there's got to be a sea change where if women really want to be equal or even better, we need to really embrace that. And as Brené Brown says, embrace any shame that we have around being successful and having money and making a difference. All of it is tied together, which is why I love business, because business is about making money, but it's also about making a difference.
Completely agree. And I too also believe that you shouldn't assume women don't know about these things. My point is, working around small businesses for the last 15 years, the amount of times I've heard her say, my husband does the finances, I am creative, so I can't do that bit of the business. And what I want to try and say is you have to rewire, because of course you can do that part of the business. And business has to be the yin and yang. And if you don't have both sides of it, you need to make sure you do, because otherwise there'll be parts of your business you're not in control of or you're scared about.
Yes.
It's breaking that down, and however silly you feel or whatever those things are, face into it.
And I think it's our generation. I mean, if I look at, my niece has just started at my school, very excitingly. It's completely different then. I mean, she's into tech, but she's learning coding. She loves maths. I think you have to start at a young age to sort of get rid of the notion that you can't learn these things or these things aren't for you. And I remember when I left school, my headmistress said to me, "You've done very well. It's been, you've had a wonderful career at the school, and I know that you're going to become a wonderful PA to some man one day." And that was the pinnacle of what I could possibly have achieved with my life. So you can imagine I was like, I'm going to show her.
I'll show you, PA. Tell me, we're coming towards the end of this interview, but tell me what the future looks like for Lily's Kitchen.
Gosh, well, we international is very much on our radar. You know, you never know when you're launching in France or Germany or Singapore or Japan even, you know, how consumers will react to your product. Will they love it as much as people do here in the UK? And it is lovely to see that they do. They ask different questions. So in France, you know, they want to know all about, is it backed by vets? You know, does it have the sort of scientific credentials? They're very interested in that part, which luckily our food is. And in Japan, they love the design and, you know, they adore the story and the marketing piece around Lily's Kitchen. So for us, it's really about growing our footprint internationally and launching in these big markets and really making Lily's Kitchen a global brand.
It's quite amazing, isn't it, that you are now selling in 22 countries. And I'm just so proud for you that is what's happening. It's also really inspirational. On this podcast, we were talking about international with Donna Wilson, and she just said, well, I never even looked at it like that. What I did is I found Donna Wilson fans all over the world because we're humans. And I then just gave them my goods, you know, and I said, well, that's going international, you know, and it's the same for you. You're finding your Lily's Kitchen fans in Japan. Of course there will be.
Yes. And
going out there. And I think that's another message I'd love people to listen to, which is, you know, go out, explore. Your product is going to be loved elsewhere as well.
Yeah. And it's such a great, you know, it's a wonderful point you make, because if you're selling to fans, then the product will just fly. Actually, very unusually for an FMCG brand, we sell in independents and vets and grocery and online, so it's quite unusual to cover all bases. And we really take care of our independents to make sure that, you know, we help them set up windows or Christmas displays. But when you're talking to somebody who's a shop owner, you know, their whole life is their, and their income is their shop. Having somebody who is a fan of your product, you know, you're just in a relationship with them, and it is just beautiful. You know, they call you up, you know who they are. It's, you know, you can really take care of them. You send them lots of extra things. And, you know, that kind of old-fashioned aspect of a business is also wonderful, as well as all the sort of high-tech kind of anonymous, you know, e-commerce buying where you're never going to meet the customer. It's wonderful to have, you know, all aspects of your business so that you're hitting consumers at different points through a fan base.
Gosh, we're coming to the end of this interview, and I always use the analogy that running your own business is like being on some crazy roller coaster. You would have Lily sitting next to you, maybe not liking the roller coaster so much. Tell me what one of your biggest lows has been since running Lily's Kitchen.
In terms of lows for me personally, it's if you lose people in your team who you don't want to lose, you know, that's always a blow, not just to me, but for the rest of the team. Or, you know, you recruit somebody who perhaps hasn't worked out, that's also low, because it takes so much time to then fill that role, and, you know, the damage that's been done. I think probably I have to say around people that's been my most hair-tearing moments.
Because it's, you know, and that's, again, something maybe that it's not spoken about enough, you know. People, the structure of your business is people, and get a
make or break,
and break. You know, get the wrong person in there, and it can cause a lot of damage. And I think, again, women, you know, once you know, you've got to act quickly. And it is that thing that great that we're women and we communicate fantastically and we're empathetic. But when people need to exit a business, you know, you now need to act on that. You can't always be nice, keep everybody happy.
Well, I just think, you know, it's back down to the woman thing. I'm sorry I'm beating the same drum, but I actually think, you know, when I look at some of the recruits that hasn't worked out, I think, you know, they've had an issue with working for a female boss, which is a horrible thing to say. Yes, because...
Really?
Yes, if you come from a sort of hierarchical, male-dominated industry and you're not used to a woman being the boss, then it's very hard. I think men can find it quite difficult. And, you know, that I've certainly had that experience.
I say really. I've been there. What am I saying really for? I mean, Yes. And conversely, the greatest high. Lily's got like wind in the ears and the ears are fluttering around. What's been your greatest high?
Oh, wow. Well, when we do some great product launches, I think that's great. I mean, we had a brilliant thing last week. I don't know if you heard about it, but we launched a house of treats for dogs. And it was a pop-up for 3 days. And we basically created a dog's dream home. So there was the laundry that they could get into. There was a bubble bath with bacon-flavoured bubbles sort of puffing out. There was a spa massage area. There was a walk in the woods. And, people would just come in with their dogs and just adore it. They would just love it. And they said, look, this is like soft play, but for dogs. Why hasn't anybody thought of this beforehand?
And your brain's going,
And so it really comes down to those conversations you have at Crufts with the customer who, is in tears saying, thank you for saving my dog's life. They are worth everything. Because, I just know how much that dog means to you. And it's a privilege being part of that person's experience.
And someone that maybe I could interview, someone that's inspired you, that you think maybe I could interview on this podcast.
Goodness, well, Gwyneth Paltrow, that's always a great example. I love what she's done with Goop. I know she gets a lot of flack, but
she does. Tell me, I've never heard a fan.
Oh,
so tell
I'm
me
a fan. Because I just think, it's so crazy and out there, some things, but actually there's a lot of great information there. And, okay, you may not be able to... I may not be able to spend, £2,000 on something, but amongst that, there's great, she's been talking about the menopause, even the conscious uncoupling piece. Actually, I think she is a great role model, and I think, we shouldn't be bashing her too much because she is breaking down barriers, and I know how hard that is. It's painful, it's horrible, you're on your own, everyone's laughing at you, and, and I respect anybody who breaks down barriers.
What a good recommendation. Thank you so much. What fascinating insights you shared. And I know there is so much love for your business from humans and dogs and cats, but you have disrupted an industry despite being laughed at, and you've really proven them wrong, and that headmistress as well. Multi-million-pound business that I know will go from strength to strength, and it has just been such an honour. You are exceptional and you're a role model for us, and, keep doing what you're doing and talking about these issues such as women in business, because we have got to do something about it, get breaking those ceilings or whatever they say, and glass ceilings, all this sort of stuff. But I think you're the woman for the job. So I'm going to be backing you. It's that time at the podcast where I now hand over. It's a letter to your younger self. Mm-hmm. But can I just say thank you for today, for sharing part of your soul. And it's just an honour.
Thank you so much, Holly. It's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So this is a letter to my 11-year-old self. Dear Henrietta, I understand that right now things are looking pretty bad. Do not despair. I know you've been dealt a multitude of tragic events in a very short space of time, before you've even become a teenager. But don't give up. I know things seem really hard and pointless at this moment, but you have so much life and love in you to give that you can't spend forever feeling sorry for yourself and angry at the world. Losing both your parents, becoming a refugee and being adopted, that's a lot for a 12-year-old. But don't be a victim of what has happened to you. No one's going to come and rescue you. But this is what will make you who you are, someone who doesn't give up. You're going to make a big difference in the world. There's adventure and excitement ahead too. You can do it. Don't be ashamed of what happened. It wasn't your fault. You'll be very independent and won't be one to follow the crowd. Your losses have made you a braver, stronger person and made you trust your instinct. You're not just a survivor. You're someone who will learn that being vulnerable is an asset. It's the key to being creative and innovative. You'll create businesses that break the mold and stand for something because of who you are. Your sense of fairness and justice will mean that you'll always take care of people who are loyal and on your side. Birds of a feather flock together. Your kindness for others will guide you through your life and all the decisions you'll be making. Having gone through so much pain at such an early age means that you're incredibly empathetic. You're tough, too. What doesn't break you makes you. It means you demand a lot of yourself and of others. You're like a human comet, driven and unstoppable. You'll never accept no as an answer, which is why being an entrepreneur has been the perfect role for you. Seeing what needs fixing and transforming, persuading and enrolling others in your wish to make the world a better place. Trying to break down barriers and prejudices, challenging the status quo. It's what you love doing. Being out of your comfort zone was what happened, and you have turned this into a positive. Your life will be full of breakthroughs, and a few breakdowns too. But don't be afraid to make mistakes. You'll have lots of bumps in the road, but you can't learn and grow unless you go over them. You don't always have to work twice as hard to prove your worth. Don't feel guilty about taking some time out when you need to. Working so hard to set up businesses has meant that you couldn't always make the time you wanted to for your family and friends. You're not on your own, though. Remember, there are lots of wonderful people around you who you can lean on. And one word of warning, beware of experts and know-it-alls. They're scared of you and your free spirit. Never allow yourself to become an expert, as you'll forever be shut down to possibilities. It takes courage to stay vulnerable, and it will mean that you're open and your instinct will be strong. When it all gets too much, don't take life too seriously. It's all meaningless anyway, and we're only here for such a short time. Keep your sense of humour. You'll have a wonderful daughter and be a great mother to her. Somehow you'll have the energy to be there for her and fit in all your work commitments. You are the master of multitasking. You'll marry an incredibly caring woman who will be able to share the joys and the burdens. You'll create a new family which will include a dog that will change your life and the life of many others. And always remember what your mum told you. If at first you don't succeed, try again.
Just, what can I say? Just an extraordinary human being. And I think about my job, if this is a job, and how lucky I am to know someone like you, and just the courage that you show and how you've used that pain and what you've gone through, breaking all those barriers. And you've built something, and your parents must be so, so proud of you. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you enjoyed this episode with Henrietta Morrison, I'd love to suggest listening to my conversation with Katie Empk, founder of Find Cell Work, a woman who's helped redefine what we think of prisoners as they learn to embroid. You can find Katie's interview by searching Conversations of Inspiration wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've enjoyed listening, if it's helped or inspired you, would you mind rating and reviewing? Your support really does mean the world to me. It helps spread the word and will inspire more people to build a life they love. And for all our latest news, you can sign up to my weekly newsletter, Holly's Desk Notes, over at holly.co.